What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. Today we have episode 12 of the Pittsburgh Pirates franchise here on MLB The Show 20. We've got to recap what happened last year in the World Series at the end of 2021, and we've got to recap some things that have happened over the offseason following our World Series. Now, I can't go back into the calendar to recap it for you. I debated on making a mini video to cover just the World Series recap at the end of it, but decided against that, decided to do more of a hearty video where we cover all of these things at once, the offseason and the World Series, and I'm happy to announce that yes, we won the World Series in 2021. Your Pittsburgh Pirates are once again World Series champions, and it's time to go ahead and move forward and see if we can make this Pittsburgh Pirates team into a dynasty that can hopefully reach a couple more World Series, hopefully continue to win as much as we did this year, and I'm looking forward to see what we can do as we move forward. We've already started the beginning steps of continuing to build upon what we have already done here. So let's go ahead and we'll recap that after I go through the 4 games that we played against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, just like the other opponents that we had faced, didn't prove to be much of an opponent at all. I wish I could go back and show you the actual scores, but the games were all pretty low scoring, like 3-1, 4-1 games, where Tampa Bay just could not get any offense going against our pitching staff, which is a really good sign. That's saying that we've built our pitching staff the way that we need to keep other teams from being able to score against us. That's also a good sign that our defense has continued to improve, so I really like to see that, and we got enough run support to win 4 straight games there and cap off a nice World Series sweep for us. You know, Tampa Bay wasn't the toughest opponent I thought we were going to face in the playoffs, so it's no surprise to me that we ended up winning the World Series there, especially after playing some of the tougher opponents earlier on and kind of getting their butts handed to them and us rolling right through them. So I think it was all but a foregone conclusion that we were going to win the World Series. I'm happy to announce, like I said, that we did. So let's go ahead here in a second and get into some of what has happened with the team up to this point, and I can talk about some of the moves that we've made and kind of some of the progression that some of these players have had. Alright, so if we go ahead, we look at the roster, we will go and start with the starting pitching staff. Mitch Keller, after winning the Cy Young, is up to a 96 overall at only 25 years old with A potential. So Mitch Keller is looking like the absolute ace on this team. After winning a Cy Young, I have no doubts about the fact that he is going to continue to be the ace for us for a long time. We have a lot of improvement out of him, as you guys saw, so he is up to a 96, and he's going to pave the way for this team to become a dynasty, a baseball dynasty. So we will see if we can make that happen. That is my goal from here on out after winning a World Series. The number 2 pitcher, Jameson Taillon, who has been kind of overtaken by Mitch Keller, has reached his potential. He has done exactly what we wanted him to do. He played really well in the playoffs, and he is up to a 92 overall with A potential. The thing that I'll say about Jameson Taillon is that he is getting close to the age of 30, so we will have to be on a lookout for when his second contract rolls around. I can't remember what age I signed him through, but I'm hoping to keep this core group of pitchers together. Noah Syndergaard, after having a strong rehab season with us and getting his crap together and really turning into a really, really strong pitcher for us towards the end of the season and in the playoffs, and maybe our best pitcher in the playoffs, is up to an 89 overall, and his potential went up to A. So that's really nice to see that he has developed into a really, really strong pitcher for us as well. So our top 3 are absolutely not questionable at this point. These 3 are locked in to be around for at least a couple years, unless a contract situation comes up where we have to re-sign somebody and maybe they want too much money for what our budget is at that point in time. Now, what I will say, Brandon Waddell performed really admirably. He's up to an 81 with A potential. He's got a few more years of growth potential left, being that he's 27 years old, so we'll see what can happen with him. But what I do want to point out is that we have a couple of really young A potential, high potential pitchers that are waiting in the wings to get MLB playing time in the near future. We've got Prince Hoff sitting at a 69 with A potential, Brennan Malone with a 69 A potential, Otis Matthews at a 68 with A potential, Deerdorf at a 68 with B potential, Quinn Priester at a 68 with A potential, and John Duplantier at a 66 with A potential. So this is something that I want to be on the lookout is, if these guys push for MLB playing time, I could look to deal away Brandon Waddell. That is in the cards. That is on the table, and I would have no bones about doing that because we got a good amount of time out of him. I did re-sign him to a contract, so if we look at it, we signed him to a pretty cheap deal for a multi-year deal here through 2026. So that could go two ways. That could present extra value to a team that we trade him to, or that could present value to us if we want to keep him. If we want him to stick around for a couple years, or we want to stick around for a while, we have him on a relatively inexpensive deal for what I think he is worth. The other thing to note is that he does present value to other teams. If they want a player that is young but a high potential player that has a decent overall and has good roster control, they can keep control over him for a couple years at a cheap value, that could present a really good value to another team. So we will be looking to explore options with Brandon Waddell. I'm not guaranteeing a trade at this point because, like I said, these guys aren't necessarily ready quite yet to take over, but there are some guys here that I have said previously that I want to be in my starting rotation eventually. Quinn Priester mainly being the number one guy that I want to be in my rotation long term. And on top of that, we drafted Prince Hoff. We have Brennan Malone hanging around, Otis Matthews we drafted. We have a lot of really good pitchers here that I think could do some stuff for us in the near future, so we got to be on the lookout for that. And then Braxton Ashcraft performed really well at the end of the season, performed admirably in the playoffs, and I do want him to be around. I want him to be a part of the rotation. I think ideally speaking, my outlook for the rotation would be Keller, Tyon, Syndergaard, Ashcraft, and probably Priester. So that raises questions as for where the rest of these guys end up falling within that type of an order, whether that means that I'm going to have to trade them away and get other prospects. I don't know yet. I don't have that definite answer, but if you guys have suggestions on any of that, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below. I will have one decision that I want your feedback on, and we'll get to that in a moment. In terms of our relief pitchers, Archie Bradley is up to an 86 overall with A potential. We decided to go and bring in another bullpen arm, and the trade that we did to get Bummer here, Aaron Bummer off the White Sox, was we traded Gesellman. The reason that we decided to do that was because if we want to really be considered a dynasty here, and we really want to supplant our legacy, what we need to do is we need to have consistency in all phases of our game. And so we need to have these high-end bullpen players that can come in, get guys out, and get us to the next inning as quickly as possible. And so I think with the combination of Archie Bradley, Bummer, Foster, Diaz that we added last year, Fairbanks, who's coming on really strong, and Eliezer Hernandez, I think that combination gives us a really, really good fighting chance to dominate pretty much any opponent that we could possibly come up against. Once our starting pitcher's off the field, any relief pitcher that comes on the field in their place is going to be just as good, if not better, at holding that score and getting us moving on to the closer. Speaking of the closer, we've got Keone Keller still hanging around at a 28-year-old, 89 overall with A potential. No complaints there. What I will say is we have Gerson Batista, who is kind of waiting in the wings to get some opportunity at the major league level as a 73 overall with B potential. I will be looking to play him at some point. I'm going to try and scout him out a little bit here in spring training just to see what he's all about. He's got really good velocity, so probably somebody that I like. Back to the relief pitchers, I do want to mention some of these guys that will probably vie for playing time within the near future would be guys like Tom Lolich that we drafted last year or the year before, Tuki Toussaint, which we have at an A potential 69, Hunter Harvey, who's got A potential that did come up at the end of last year. We also have Armas, we have Barton Castle, who was a draft pick this year, and then we've got some lower guys down here in the ranks, but we do have a couple relief pitchers that could vie for playing time at some point, which is nice to see. I like having that competition. I like having guys around that can push each other. The other thing that I'll say is that we did make a trade. Yeah, we traded away Socrates Brito because he actually put us over the 40-man roster limit, and he was the best candidate I could find to trade away. And so in his place to come back to the team, we actually brought in Rob Klauboff, I believe is how you say his name, out of California. We brought him in because he's a 66 overall with A potential. You know that I like to have strong relief candidates, and if Keone Kela moves on at any point, Kloboff strikes me as the type of guy that could take his spot. Don't forget, we do have guys like Edwin Diaz and whatnot that could probably take that position as well, Archie Bradley, but I like to have a really young guy with high potential that could potentially take his spot, which would be nice to see if that does happen eventually. Obviously not going to happen right now because he's only a 66. But if budget starts to become a concern with all these players getting high overalls and having to re-sign players, that could be something that we do. Now, when we look at catchers, Sean Murphy's up to an 82 with A potential. He improved defensively a little bit. He improved offensively a little bit. I like to see what's going with him. Hopefully, he can continue to improve and really hit his stride here at the end of his 20s. That way, we can maybe give him another contract and keep him around for a long time, and he can be the kind of franchise catcher for us. Dalton Varsho actually got an upgrade to B potential after the playoffs because he had a pretty good performance when he did come in as a 75 overall 25-year-old. So we have two good catchers, and that's what I really like to see. There's not much else to update in terms of our catchers here. I believe one of these guys, Greg Medina or Peter Sweat, or both of them actually were draft picks this year for us. So nice to see that we have, yet again, good catching prospects. At first base, Josh Bell, obviously up to 92 with A potential. No surprise there. You guys all know what's going on with him. But the one player that I do want to look to potentially get some MLB playing time in the near future is Mason Martin. And so we have him up for spring training right now as a 64 overall with B potential. He is a little young. He's a little bit low of an overall, but he's got crazy power numbers, and I really want to get that bat up to the major league and get that on our bench. And so that's where we start to come into some of the decisions that we have to make. When we get over to third base, we'll talk about Colin Moran and what I want you guys' opinion on. And then we have Kevin Newman at second base, continuing to develop into a superstar for us, just a really well-rounded player. Jorge Mateo has continued to do what we want him to do, and I have no reason to trade him away now. The one thing that I will note, though, is Liover Peguero is getting real close to breaking into the major leagues at a 60 overall with A potential, so he will be vying for playing time. We're at a point now where we're going to have a lot of prospects vying for playing time, and that might force some of these older guys out of the organization. That might force us to trade them away because, like I said, I don't like to logjam prospects. I'd rather the prospects come up and get playing time, and if we want to be a dynasty, we need to continue to develop players, and we need to keep getting returns for some of our older players. And so when I talk about that, it's kind of ironic that we move over to third base and we look at Colin Moran. Colin Moran's great for us, and you guys know how well I hit with him, and you know how well he's done for us in this franchise, but this is something I'd like your guys' opinion on. Should we move on from him so that we can get some playing time for guys like Liover Peguero or Mason Martin? Because, yeah, Colin Moran's going to be a great DH for us. He's going to be a great hitter for us, but at the same time, I'd like to get as much value back for him while we can before he might start to regress at some point. So when he starts to get into his 30s, he could start to go down. I think it could be worthwhile for us to explore options for him. So maybe let me know in the comment section what you guys think about that. I like what I'm seeing out of Joe Rizzo. He's up to a 63 overall with A potential. If we go over to shortstop, O'Neal Cruz had a breakout season, hit a ton of home runs, actually played pretty well defensively. He's up to an 86 with A potential, and it's funny to think about how good he played for us and how well he has developed when he wasn't even supposed to be on the roster this year. It was a mistake that he was on the roster, and we ran out of options for him. So we were kind of stuck playing him. So it's really funny that he's up and he's doing as well as he has. But hey, I'm not going to complain. He's up to an 86 overall as a 23-year-old. So that's really important for us. Cole Tucker did develop when we had him down in AAA, so we might give him another shot in the major leagues this year. I would like to, maybe it's worthwhile to play a guy like Cole Tucker over a guy like Colin Moran. So, this is where we really start to get into some hard conversations about who's staying and who's going, and that's really important to talk about. In left field, Brian Reynolds, no surprise. You guys know how well he did last year, and this is our big pickup for the season. Andrew McCutchen's contract ran out, and we decided to bring back Andrew McCutchen so that he can once again leave his stamp on the city of Pittsburgh, play out the rest of his days here, and hopefully be a part of making this team a dynasty. And this is another reason why Colin Moran might be out, because, as much as, Andrew McCutchen at this point in his career might not be the greatest player in the world, I would rather have him around for what we're trying to do. I want him to be a part of it, and I think he deserves to be a part of it. So that was our huge move for the offseason. That was our only move in the offseason in terms of actually signing a player. Some other things to talk about are guys like Chris Sharp that, they're ready for MLB playing time, and, I'm going to have to consider maybe trading him away because he might start to get angry with the fact that he's not getting called up to the majors because of how well he's been doing. We also have a couple other guys like Leroy Gonzalez, Cal Mitchell that have been doing really well that could get called up. Travis Swaggerty has kind of, at the end of the season there and in the playoffs, pretty much proven that he's the center fielder, and he'll be supplemented by Jason Martin and Brandon Marsh in the outfield. I think Brandon Marsh has a good shot to continue to develop for us. He did really well for us when he did play. So I'm going to try to get him as much playing time as possible as well. In right field, J.J. Bleday has, rounded himself out as a very good player. I'd like to continue to see more out of him. I'd like to see a real breakout season from him because we haven't really gotten that from him yet. He's just kind of really improved defensively, and I'd like to really see his bat improve one of these seasons. Sammy Siani's another guy that could potentially make it up to the majors within the near future at a 66 overall with a potential. And I believe we might have brought in, I think Richie Bass was a guy that we brought in one of the couple trades that we did there to bring players in. We just kind of consolidated some of the players that we had and made things happen. The only real player that we got rid of that are notable is Socrates Brito, who was at like a 71 overall, and he was kind of ready to break into the majors. At 28 years old and B potential, I wasn't really ready to give him any playing time. He certainly wouldn't have started over a guy like Brandon Marsh or Jason Martin, so we decided to deal him away. And then the only other player that was of note, like I said, was trading away Robert Gesellman in the bullpen. Even though he played really, really well for us, it was just a matter of trying to fix our roster and getting us within the 90 total players that we could have because our draft picks came in. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out with that. Let me know what you guys think. That is our recap. I mean, there's not too much else to talk about in terms of what's going on. We did give a couple players contract extensions like I talked about, but nobody that's super important or anything like that. I think that it is, I think that's pretty much all we have to talk about at this point. I will go ahead and play some of the spring training and get through spring training, and I'll be back to you guys probably after spring training, maybe once we get into the first month of the season or something like that. You guys know how it plays out. I'll be back to you guys soon enough with another update video to talk about what exactly is going on. We might do some things differently this season. We'll see. No guarantees because, I've been strung pretty thin lately with how much stuff I've been doing, so hopefully I can just get into this and play it and keep this franchise going, because I do want to build this team into a dynasty and I want to take you guys along for the ride. So if it's something that you guys are interested in, let me know by leaving a like on the video. As always, comment down below with what you guys would like to see with the franchise, definitely with the Colin Moran situation, the Brandon Waddell situation. What do you guys think we should do with them? Is there anybody else that you guys think we should explore a trade for or something like that? Are you guys happy about the Andrew McCutchen move, bringing him back in to try and help build this team into a dynasty? And subscribe to the channel here if you guys are new. I hope you guys have a great night. I'll see you in the next one.